one of the biggest tech businesses in the world, Microsoft, has produced over 12,000 millionaires and 3 billionaires. Thanks in great part to globalization and the growth of the internet, we currently have a record number of more millionaires. However, obtaining or holding on to money is difficult since things change so quickly in this world that, if you're not as smart as you should be, you could lose it all in an instant. Because of this, the typical millionaire has 7 sources of revenue. It is not a good idea to put all your eggs in one basket. You are doomed if anything goes wrong. So in today's video, we will dive deep into the 7 primary sources of income. A man by the name of Jeff Bezos submitted a patent application in 1997 for an internet ordering system. Alternatively, you can choose to buy without first adding the item to your shopping cart. That seems like such a basic pattern that nobody should have, but over the past 20 years, Amazon has made billions of dollars, giving this patent to businesses like Apple under license. Because they may be a possible source of cash, companies file for a lot of patterns, even if they don't need them. This is the actual passive income that you will continue to receive after completing your work. However, that also entails producing a film and writing a book. Capital gains come in second. Purchasing an asset, like stocks or real estate, and then selling it for a profit is known as capital gains. Assume you purchase 100 stocks at a cost of $100 apiece, for a total of $10,000. When the stock hits $120, you make the decision to cash out. Your capital gain is therefore $2,000. For long-term investments, the tax rate on capital gains is normally between 15% and 20% at most, and 37% in the short term. If you observe closely, it's also quite well liked by millionaires. Not because the tax rate is only 20%, but you can avoid paying any taxes if you make wise decisions. The first method is really simple. Don't sell your investment though, hold on to it. You don't have to pay a dime, even if you make billions of dollars. However, it may not be practical for everyone. This is because to have some cash in your hands, you might need to sell some of your investments. There is a second method of tax loss harvesting as a result of this. When you sell, it happens, which is a loss-making investment to lower your tax liability. Well, it doesn't make sense at first glance. Why you deliberately lose money? Allow me to clarify. Assume you are a seasoned investor with a variety of equities in your holdings. Your stock A has risen by $200,000, which is amazing, but unfortunately, your stock dropped by 25%. Now that your $200,000 investment is only worth $150,000, let's imagine you need the money. You wish to sell $50,000 of your stock, A. Although paying a 15% capital gain tax is the ideal scenario, there is an alternative that involves selling your stock for $150,000 and a biosimilar first. To realize your loss, invest the same amount as before. You can write off the $50,000 realized loss you incurred from your tax liability. Therefore, you can deduct $50,000 if you sell $50,000 worth of shares. Finally, there's no tax on you. Since losses are a necessary part of investing, why not use them to lower your tax liability? That's the general notion behind it. It's far more complex than this, but I skipped over many specifics and oversimplified it. Usually, a computer using a certain algorithm makes it much easier than being done by hand, since they can keep carrying them forward for the rest of their lives. Investors continually sell their failed investments and reinvest the money back into a similar asset to realize losses. Hence, you either pay very little or nothing at all in taxes when you earn a capital gain. You receive income from purchases alongside that. Purchasing stock equates to owning a portion of a corporation, even if that portion is so tiny as to be insignificant. It makes sense. Businesses today are valued at trillions of dollars, and since you are one of the share owners, the business must distribute its profits to you. However, companies usually don't pay dividends even if they make billions of dollars, such as Google and Facebook, because they keep the profits within the company to reinvest them back. Because of this, rather than being concerned about the dividend, most investors are focused on the stock price of firms like Apple pays dividends. Indeed, Apple distributed a 73-cent dividend per share to stockholders as of November 2018. Although it's not much, anything is always preferable to nothing. You pay taxes on dividend income according to your income tax bracket. Most would fall into the 12–24% range. Is there a means of evading those taxes? There is, but that will have to wait for another video. 3. Regular earnings. The most typical source of revenue. Wages, salaries, commissions, and bonuses are all included. That occurs when you exchange your time for money immediately. Naturally, because you only have so much time, it has its restrictions. However, there are other issues with this kind of income as well. Over half of the $3.3 trillion in taxes collected by the government in 2018 came from income taxes. The majority of taxes are paid by those with this kind of income because the corporate income tax only accounts for 8% of total government revenue. Payroll taxes account for an additional 35% of revenue and are meant to be divided equally between you and your employer to pay for Medicare, Social Security, and other benefits. Employers do bear some of the expense for employees, according to a study. Thus, 86% of taxes are paid by those with earned income, whereas very little is paid by billionaires. This is the simplest source of revenue, since it requires no thought or risk-taking on your part. It's really taxing since you can find a job if you have a certain set of abilities. However, it isn't sustainable at all because you would lose your only source of income if you lost this job. 4. Rental income comes next. Everyone's favorite is presumably rental income. After purchasing a home, you rent it out. When you're not required to participate actively, it's primarily passive. My experience has shown me that it takes a lot longer than most people realize. Some tenants stay for a few months, some remain for a few years. Some people take care of your belongings, some tenants pay you on time and won't cause you any issues. Others are just a hassle, so it has advantages and disadvantages. But you may also rent out commercial real estate to companies, which is sometimes a better option. It is theoretically possible to rent practically everything, including phones and cars. 5. Interest income. It's among the simplest and most straightforward ways to make money. When you're not actively involved, it's more of a passive source of revenue. Because of this, it has been compared to other investment types, and the rate of return is often substantially lower. It's because the bank typically takes your money when you lend it to governments, banks, or businesses in the form of bonds. By lending it to another party at a higher interest rate, it continues to collect money from the borrower, reimburses you for your share of the transaction, and keeps the remaining amount for itself. In summary, this is how banks generate revenue. Typically, the government issues bonds to raise funds. Purchasing a bond essentially amounts to making a direct loan to the government. Lastly, business income is money you make by conducting business, whether it's from selling goods or rendering services. Out of all these income streams, this is most likely the most significant since other sources typically yield about 15% to 500%. Tax minimization is the goal of return, but it only becomes effective if you already have substantial wealth. However, with this type of income, a mere $100 can yield a 1,000% return. Naturally, having several revenue streams is beneficial in case one of them falters. But you're also running a lot of other things, so it's also a major distraction. Handling a single revenue stream requires full-time work. Avoid switching up your revenue too quickly. Once you've mastered one and are making enough money to create, give the other one your whole attention. An additional revenue stream requires little work. Then go on. If you look at it more closely, you'll see that's how people initially become wealthy. Just a brief warning. To keep the movie as brief as possible, the majority of these points were oversimplified, but I think it's crucial to comprehend the many forms of revenue. The rich get richer for this reason. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. It supports the channel. Additionally, if you're new here, please make sure you click the bell next to the subscribe button. I appreciate you seeing it.